Hey everybody, it's Robert Phoenix broadcasting to you. Let me get the voice together here. It's the end of a long weekend. Broadcasting, streaming live from Austin, Texas, just a little bit northeast of New Braunfels, which is a town that was settled by Germans back in the 1800s, in the 1840s. And New Braunfels and the whole kind of hill country area was settled by a group of Germans trying to get away from dogma and political and religious thinking. They were called the Free Thinkers. They're an interesting group of people. And New Braunfels was one of the communities that they founded. And there are a few others kind of around the hill country, most notably Fredericksburg, which is still in existence. So I'm just trying to give you a kind of a 40,000 foot view of kind of where New Braunfels is. It's on the way to San Antonio if you've never been to Texas. And the most notable thing that they have in New Braunfels is a water park called the Schlitterbahn. So that gives you kind of a background. There's basically German heritage in New Braunfels, but the type of Germans that settled there were not your ordinary kind of Germans looking to populate the new world and benefit from the land and the soil and all the riches therein. These were people that were ideological, and they came here to be free, and a lot of them were pacifists. And when the Civil War started up, they were evading the Civil War. They were trying to go to Mexico because they wanted absolutely no part of any kind of conflict. In fact, before Texas became a state and even a republic, they were trying to carve out their own kind of little union, their own little republic in some ways here in Texas. But once Texas became a state, it wasn't too long. Once Texas became its own republic, it wasn't long after that it became a state. So the free thinkers, they ran out of money and they ran out of time. So I'm just giving you kind of a background, kind of a snippet, a bullet point as to kind of the genealogy of that area. So it's actually east of San Antonio. So if you keep heading on the 35, you'll get to San Antonio. If you keep going south and then I believe a little west, if I'm not mistaken, you'll run into Sutherland Springs, which is where a shooting occurred today. And here we are. It's another Sunday night event. Back on the 1st of October, just a little bit over a month ago, we had the event in Las Vegas, which we're still trying to put the pieces together in our own way. I've looked at the chart of Las Vegas on this show, and I could see that the markers of the chart were clearly connected to 9/11, and that included the rising sign of the event, which was the same degree of Saturn in the 9/11 chart, which was 15 degrees Gemini, and the sun at that time was at 9 degrees 11 minutes Libra. So you could rest assured that most likely the same people that were behind the Vegas shooting were also involved in 9/11. Now, what we've also seen over the course of the past week or so was the release of the JFK files. And the JFK files are important because they give us an insight into the thread that exists from JFK to 9/11 to Las Vegas. So I'm just trying to lay out some pearls on a string. And tonight, what I'm going to try to do is get into the chart. I cast a chart for the shooting, and when I was on the show on Friday, doing the Friday Firecast, I was not convinced that anything was going to happen on the 4th of November. I looked at the chart and I said, this is not really a prime day for something to happen. Like, in the sense that there was going to be this kind of, mass flood of Antifa foot soldiers swarming across the nation dressed up as Trump people and, basically creating havoc. I didn't think that was going to happen. I looked at the chart. I really wasn't convinced. But it's quite interesting that Donald Trump has decided to extend his visit to the Far East. So he's going to be gone for 13 days, which puts it out to roughly the 18th of November. Now, also Ivanka Trump is out of the country too, so that's kind of interesting. Now, what's going to happen between now and then? Well, I looked at the chart for the 9th of October, which would mark the year anniversary of Trump's election. And it didn't really jump out at me. And then I moved ahead to roughly 11/22, which seems to be a pretty interesting number in that it is the same day as the JFK shooting. Now, from an astrological perspective, 11/22 has much more power and much more import than any other day that's leading up to this cycle. Now, that said, will Trump be here for 11/22? We think he will be. But why is he out of the country, and what could happen between them? Well, I picked up a chart for 11/18, and we're going to look at that one tonight because it's kind of a cross-section or a slice. Now, the big movers and shakers from here on out for the end of this month are going to be Uranus, Pluto, and Mars. And I talked about this on the Farcast on Friday, and what I saw really was the Mars square to Pluto as being a major impact. Well, not only will Mars be squaring Pluto right around the 21st and the 22nd, it's also going to be opposing Uranus. Now, to me, this is the energy of a coup. This is the energy that gets things stirred up and moving, okay? Now, remember, Mars is going to be moving closer and closer in aspect, both in square to Pluto and in opposition to Uranus. So the energy of Mars is moving forward. And what we might do is we might look at some of the Sabian symbols that are going to pop up at around 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 Libra. We might do that tonight. In fact, I'm just going to go ahead and bring that into the discussion. I'm also going to be looking at the week ahead tonight, just with some of the energies. Now, we're going to be dealing what happened tonight in Sutherland Springs, Texas. I'm going to do my best to get as in-depth as possible with, given the fact that we don't really know a lot outside of the fact that I have a Facebook friend who sent me something here. I want to read it to you. This is so we can get right to the heart of this. Let's see, this person's name is Amber. That's all I'm going to say. As many of you know, I lost half my family at the church shooting in Sutherland Springs. I'm beyond devastated. I apologize for not replying to all the texts and calls yet. It will take me some time. Please keep my family in your prayers. This has been a horrific event, and my heart is beyond crushed. My family made this for Christmas, and now it's a big Christmas card, or I believe it's a birthday card, something like this. It's a big poster card, and it's got all these people who have signed their names. A lot of them are kids, it looks like. Looks like some adults. There's some adult writing, and here's also some children's writing. My family made this for me for Christmas, and now many of them are no longer with us. It all seems so unreal. Hold those you love a little closer tonight. We never know how long we have on this earth. This is true. So this came through a friend. I'm just going to read you what she said to me. She says, the shooter things are surreal, and more so because people actually die. They actually die in most cases. I don't think what happened in New York, I'm not sure anybody died in New York. I just want to say that. The friend is in California, so she isn't there to observe the. So this person who's a friend of mine on Facebook is a really good. Well, she's a good friend in the sense that I've known her on Facebook. I've done readings for her. She's a really good person. I trust this person. So she's sending me something from a friend, and it's a real friend, and I believe it is. Then we have to take that into consideration, and add that to what we're talking about. We're going to talk about tonight. I just wanted to put it out there, okay? Because what we're looking at now is really if you, okay. So there, I have a few thoughts here. Let me take a little sip of this. Thank you. A couple of years ago, Dylan Roof went into a church in Columbia, South Carolina, and supposedly killed a lot of people in that church. And Dylan Roof, I'm not convinced killed anybody in that church. I'm not convinced he killed anyone. I did a lot of legwork on that event. I looked at Dylan Roof. I looked at the event. I looked at the timing, where the church was, how long it would take to kill all those people, where the nearest police station was, the whole backstory that the cops took Dylan Roof out for lunch after they picked him up. He was on Facebook. He had Facebook friends that were multicultural. They were diverse. They did not add up to the profile of somebody who was a flag-waving Confederate racist. It didn't add up. So I'm still on the record that Dylan Roof didn't kill anybody. That's my piece. So I wanted to just bring this whole church thing in, and I wanted to just kind of isolate that a little bit. And it's kind of odd, right? Because I'm talking about this church in Southern. I don't know what the demographics are in Sutherland Springs. It's a very small place. It's a very, very small place. And I don't want to get into sort of, well, this happened here, this didn't happen here, and get into kind of comparing the communities. That's not what I'm here to do, because we're living in a different time than we were 2 years ago. And a lot of the events that happened, in my estimation, during the Obama administration were true false flags, where nobody, in fact, maybe Colorado, maybe Aurora, and I'm not even convinced with Aurora, very few people actually died in these events. This is not only my intuition, but it's some of the work that I've done, okay? And I've done a lot of legwork on this stuff. We now seem to be moving into a phase and cycle where these events have become hybridized. And if they are appearing that they may not be real, that they may not be a false flag like Vegas, there are layers of Vegas that don't look real. And there are real aspects of Vegas and some very strange anomalies. And I'm not going to get into much of Las Vegas tonight. What I want to try and do is get into, what we're going to be looking at with Sutherland Springs. So, but the whole idea of a church sacrifice is pretty significant. Just from the idea, the fact that, I just want to punch something up here, hold on. The fact that, here we go. The fact that it's taking place on quote-unquote sacred ground. Sacred ground. Okay. Now, the 5th of November is Guy Fawkes Day. It's Guy Fawkes Day. So here we go. All right, ready? Remember, the 5th of November, gunpowder, treason, and plots, goes the traditional rhyme. So this was supposed to be the overthrow of the Queen. I'll read it to you all the way through. Remember the 5th of November, gunpowder, treason, and plot. I see no reason why gunpowder treason should ever be forgot. And then there are a few other verses here that go along with it. Guy Fawkes, 'twas his intent to blow up the king in Parliament. 70 barrels of powder below, poor old England to overthrow. By God's providence, he was catched with a dark lantern and a burning match. Holler boys, let the bells ring. Holler boys, God save the king. And there's another little chorus here. A penny loaf to feed the Pope, a farthing o' cheese to choke him, a pint of beer to rinse it down, a faggot of sticks to burn him. Burn him in a tub of tar, burn him like a blazing star. Burn his body from his head, then we'll say, old Pope is dead. Hip hip hurrah, hip hip hurrah, hip hip hurrah. So the gunpowder plot centered around a group of Roman Catholic revolutionaries, furious at the persecution of their faith in England. They had hoped for the better treatment from the new monarch, James I, after 45 years of hounding under the reign of Elizabeth I, and decided on drastic measures when things did not improve upon his reign. Wickshire-born Catholic Robert Catesby and his friends planned to kill the king, his ministers, and scores of nobles by blowing up the Palace of Westminster during the state opening of Parliament on November 5th, 1605. Okay? The plotters rented a house nearby and managed to smuggle 36 barrels of gunpowder, 2.5 tons, into a cellar under the palace, ready to blow it sky high. Sounds like the Murrah building. The explosives were discovered with hours to spare after an anonymous tip-off warning one peer to stay away. To this day, the cellars under the House of Parliament are ceremonially searched before the annual state opening. What else do we have here? Who's Guy Fawkes? Far from being the plot's ringleader, Guy Guido Fawkes was merely the trigger man. Merely the trigger man. What does that sound like? Drafted in to set the fuse. Born in York, he converted to Catholicism following the death of his father and left to become mercenary fighting for the Spanish against the Protestant Church. Given his expertise in explosives, he was charged with setting and lighting the fuse to the gunpowder. He was caught red-handed by the king's men beneath the palace and was tortured for 2 days at the Tower of London until he gave up his co-conspirators. The traditional death for traitors in 17th century England was to be hanged, drawn, and quartered in public. Fawkes would have been forced to watch his testicles as his testicles were cut off and its innards ripped out. Wow. But as he awaited his punishment on the gallows, Fawkes, 35, leapt from the platform and broke his neck. Smart man. He was still hanged, and the 4 parts of his body sent around the country to warn others. We're such an evolved race, aren't we? November 5 was later declared a national holiday, and people began burning effigies of Fawkes called guys, and later setting off fireworks representing the gunpowder. So today is Guy Fawkes Day, and Guy Fawkes was nothing but the trigger man. What else can we look at as far as November 5th in terms of the synchronistic settings of the day itself? You know, I like to go back into history and see if there's anything interesting that we can connect with today's date. Of course, Guy Fawkes and Guy Fawkes Day is a pretty interesting day to connect to. Nat Turner, the American slave leader, was tried and convicted and sentenced to death in 1831. So we have Guy Fawkes Day and then the death of Nat Turner on November 5th. Woodrow Wilson was elected president in 1912. A year later, or he would then, actually a little bit less than that, it would be in January of 1913, that the Federal Reserve would come into play. And taxation and all those wonderful things, and shortly thereafter we'd be in World War I. Yep. What else do we have? Let's see what else. The October Revolution, that's 1917 in Tallinn, Estonia. That goes on November 5th. Let's see what else we have. Let's see. There was a bombing of the Vatican in World War II. A little interesting church synchromysticism there. What else do we have? Saddam Hussein. How about this? 2006, November 5th. Of course, we know it wasn't Saddam Hussein. But Saddam Hussein and his co-defendants, Barzan Ibrahim al-Tikriti and Awad Hamed al-Bandar, are sentenced to death in the al-Dujali trial for their roles in the 1982 massacre of 148 Shia Muslims. 2006. Was it really Saddam Hussein? Android was launched in 2007. And that's really, oh, how about this? Wow. Wow. 2009, check this out. 2009, Major Nidal Malik Hassan murders 13 and wounds 32 at Fort Hood in Texas, in the deadliest mass shooting at a U.S. military installation. And now supposedly we have an ex-military guy in this Devin Kelly, same spelling by the way as General Kelly. There's another interesting synchronicity. And Devin Kelly, I looked him up. I spent about $5 on Intellis, which is a service where you can go in and you can check people's records. You can find out where they've lived. It's pretty. It's if you've lived somewhere, if you've had a bank account, if you've spent money, if your name has been on a lease, if you've got a driver's license, Intellis will have it. It'll have it. Okay. So I looked up Stephen Paddock after the shooting in Las Vegas, and he had a whole history of stuff. I saw houses. I saw how. I mean, these were like current residences. He had a residence in Mesquite, Nevada, and a residence in Mesquite, Texas. He had a residence in Reno, Nevada, and I think he had one in Henderson, and he might have had one in Cerritos, California. He had houses all over the place. It was easy to trace Stephen Paddock, and you could see where his brothers were part of the report. It was all in there. So I did the same thing for this Devin Kelly, and there is nothing, absolutely nothing. Now, they may have wiped everything in advance of all this, but there is nothing there. I found a birth date. He's apparently an Aquarius, born February 11th, 1992. I'm not sure I'm going to look at his stuff yet, his data yet. But he has family. Okay, there's the Kelly family, and they live in and around New Braunfels. Some connections with Round Rock, just up the road here, up on the 35. And they all have connections to other places. New Mexico being one of them. Other areas in Texas, San Antonio, some connection to Round Rock, which is well, you can see that you can see with the schools they went to. His sister went to Texas A&M. I believe his mother was working at Buddy's Pizzeria. It's there. It's all there. But there's nothing for him. There's no other address than the one that I was able to find. And by the way, I looked up that address and I posted that picture of the address on Facebook, and it's nothing more than kind of a stand of trees in some woods in New Braunfels off of a county highway. I wasn't able to see a house there at all, or even a road that led into the house. There's really absolutely nothing there. I was like, what's going on here? So I'm mystified that this guy has absolutely zero past, none whatsoever. So now apparently he was he had a dishonorable discharge from the Air Force, and this was what, 3 years ago. 3 years ago, and apparently the narrative now is that he belonged to Antifa. Well, he's an Aquarius, if he even if he even exists. I mean, I'm not even sure if he exists. Maybe he does. I don't. I've seen 2 pictures of the guy. I didn't see his Facebook page. I looked it up. I couldn't find it. Maybe it's there somewhere where I wasn't able to see it. You know, if we could get somebody on that, that'd be great. Maybe you could put a link to it in the chat room. That'd be awesome. So here we are. We're just, this is it now. We are in it. We are in it, okay? We are in it. We are in the chamber. We are shooting the tube, to use another surfing metaphor. We are shooting the tube. This is it. We had Las Vegas, boom. Northern California, we're still reeling. People are still reeling from what happened in Northern California. We've had New York, and I don't know what to say about New York. I've looked at a lot of photos. It looks really suspicious, super suspicious, and of course it's an Islamophobic theme. So I guess the next one we're in the ping pong kind of circuit here, right? We've got the old white guy, the old angry white guy in Las Vegas, who's deciding to take out a bunch of people at a Trump event, not a Trump, but a country music event. And some of them, maybe more than just some, were people that really dug Trump or dug the Republican Party, baseball, apple pie, and guns. Country and Western music tends to have that as part of its cosmology in some ways. And then you've got this young guy now. His one picture that they showed is not the picture. There are two pictures, and the one they showed apparently where he's got short hair, those piercing blue eyes, and then the rifle, the exact rifle that he used to go in and massacre these people inside the church. Apparently, that may not even be him. There's another photo of this other guy, which I posted both on Facebook, and this guy looks like he's in a complete trance in a lot of ways. But the image we're getting is this young, sort of dark-haired. It almost looks like they found a picture without being over the top, where it looks like maybe he might be a young Nazi. Okay, this is what the one picture that is associated with the gun that we're seeing of Devin Kelley, what it looks like. So what's interesting, of course, we're dealing with two images. We're dealing with, one might be the correct one might not be the correct one. So here we are. We're into the whole Gemini spin. Interesting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the chart for Sutherland Springs in the event itself. I am going to look at charts for 3 people tonight. I said I was going to do it last week, and a bunch of people sent their information in. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to do 3 of these a week. I think I got about 11 or 12 requests. So tonight it's going to be Pluto, Michael, and Marie. Maybe not in that order, but that's who I'm going to be looking at tonight with the charts. And let's see what I want here. Let me bring up the shooting, the chart of the shooting. Oh, by the way, let's get into this, just the chart of the moment for a little bit here. I just want to see what's up with it. Where's the moon? Oh, yeah, of course. God, of course. Where were we at the shooting? Let me just look at the shooting. Yep, there we go. Where do you think the moon was in the shooting? Gemini. What did I say on my show on Friday? I said I didn't think there'd be anything happening on Saturday, but maybe Sunday when the moon was in Gemini. What did I say? I said this on Friday's show. Not to sound like, I knew that something was coming, but astrologically, it made a lot more sense to me. Look, people, I'm not harping on Gemini. I'm not. I like Gemini. I think Gemini is a really interesting sign. Some of my best clients are Geminis. So they're some of the most interesting people I've run across in a lot. So a lot of people say, "Oh, you hate Gemini." No, I don't hate Gemini. I don't hate any of the signs. Do I find some signs to be a little more difficult to deal with than others? Sure, don't we all? But it doesn't mean I don't find them interesting. Or it's like, oh please, I don't want the Aries clients. Of course not. The into my door is open. The into my door is open. Open for 2 people of very little means. And a child about to be born amongst us. All right, let's do this. Let's get into the. I just wanted to see where we were. let's get into the shooting chart here. Okay, how is everybody? We okay? Are we all right? I'll get into the chat room in a little bit. I'm sorry, I'm a little bit later than normal, but I was just going through some technical issues tonight. I had to get them settled out. Okay, here we go. So here's the chart. This is the chart of the shooting. Okay, so one of the things that's really interesting about the chart, you can begin to see now, if you go to the top of the chart, you'll see Mars up there. Okay, there's Mars, and just above it is transiting Mars. So this, it's moved maybe just a few minutes, right? Should I just put that right there? I don't want to be a distraction. There we go. Okay, so you can see where Mars is moving into it's getting into square with Pluto. It's getting closer, but it has not yet hit that kind of critical point, which is really going to be about 5. Let's see. So we got Mars is at. Let me just pop this up here. I think it's, what is that, 7? It's at 8. Okay, so Mars is at 8. Pluto's at 17. So it's not really going to get into that critical degree for about another 6 more degrees. So when we're at around 14, that's when the tension between Mars and Pluto is really going to pick up. Now, when Mars gets to right around 17, 18, it'll still be in square with Pluto, but at 18, it begins to move into a closer opposition with Uranus. So by that point in time, Mars will then begin to create a T-square between Pluto and Uranus. It will have moved a little bit past Pluto, but it will still be within, a 3 to 5 degree orb. So it's at 20. It'll be within a 3 degree orb. It will be within that 5 degree orb, which really begins to link up that opposition. So keep this in mind. Mars is starting to gain momentum. And my sense is that here on out, until Mars moves completely out of the opposition with Uranus, so we're talking 26, 27, 28, and then we're into Mars and Scorpio, roughly, or the final degrees, until we get to Mars and Scorpio, which is intense in and of itself, right? Because again, I use the Sibley chart. So that Mars, when it gets into Scorpio, will be going through the United States 12th house, which means that there is deep, deep subterfuge and hidden enemies at that point in time. We are in a critical phase. I am telling you right now, we are in a critical phase, and it is on because we are accelerating in terms of what's happening with these events. And the events have many, many different impacts. Many different impacts. All right, and I'm gonna talk about some of those impacts from an esoteric standpoint. But okay, so here we go. Look where that moon is. You see the moon? 4 degrees Cancer. I'm sorry, Gemini. I don't know what I think it's Cancer. 4 degrees Gemini. This is a signature. I said this. I said this on Friday's show. I said I don't see it happening on Saturday. In fact, if something's going to go down or something was going to happen, Sunday would be the day because that's when the moon would be in Gemini. And hence, here we are, moon in Gemini. Now, there's some interesting things going on with that moon. It's in square with Neptune. So when we get into squares with Neptune, what have I always talked about? When you get into a Neptune square, we have to really sort through the emotional information with a Neptune square. Or we have to sort through the mental information. Or we have to sort through the relationship between or the relational information between Venus and Neptune, or we have to sort through the actional information, because when we get into squares with Neptune, we get into obfuscation. It is not clear. The energies are not clear. The motives are not clear. So when we have a Moon-Neptune square, all of a sudden our emotions have the potential of really being taken away. That there is this sense that our emotions can be manipulated with a Moon-Neptune square. Never fall in love with somebody on a Moon-Neptune square. It could be a disaster. I'm just telling you. One of the things about Neptune is that it creates a sense of what? Martyrdom. That's a quality of Neptune. I'm going to talk a little bit about Harvey Weinstein. You know, my last post on my website, which is where I was talking about Harvey Weinstein, I got into his 29th degree. His 29th degree Piscean sun. And I said that this is really an amazing degree for Weinstein, because it really could catapult him. This event, right, these events, what he's going through, the degradation, the humiliation, the fall from grace, it could really catapult him into a much higher kind of spiritual revelation or spiritual sense of himself. But in order to do that, he would have to completely repent. But there was something very powerful about being born at that 29th degree of Pisces, and sacrificial. I'm going to get into that because some interesting news has sort of surfaced around that, and how Weinstein views himself, and how some other people might be viewing him as a scapegoated martyr and a type of Messiah. Okay, I'm going to talk about that. But let's go to that Moon-Neptune square again. When we get into Moon-Neptune squares, we have to watch out for what? We have to watch out for emotional distortion. Anytime you get into a square with Neptune, you're weak. There's a weakness there. It's not that it can't be overcome. You know, there are people that have Mars-Neptune squares. My son's got a Mars-Neptune square. There are people that have Venus-Neptune squares. These people are able to move through life. They're able to overcome their challenges. I mean, this is how life is. But each of these squares must be dealt with accordingly in the chart of the individual, and the resolution of the square happens over time. It happens over time. It doesn't happen immediately. So when we see a Moon-Neptune square in this chart, what are we thinking? Or we're not really thinking. We're feeling, right? We're feeling. But, and here's the but, can we trust the Moon in Gemini? I don't think we can, right? There's two pictures of this guy. One is real, one is not real. Who is he? Who is this dude? Right? What about the home? The Moon is the home. I checked out his home. There's nothing there. I mean, I didn't drive there. I was thinking about it. I was thinking about driving there tonight. I could get to New Braunfels in about 45 minutes, maybe an hour. Go look at his dress. I've got a few things. I have a few little information research pieces up my sleeve that I don't want to get into right now. But the Moon is the home. Now it said that he and his mother had a P.O. box in Sutherland Springs. So if he's supposed to live in New Braunfels and he's got a P.O. box in Sutherland Springs, what does that mean? It means he has two homes, theoretically, if he even exists the way that they're pretending or they're portraying him to exist. But the square to Neptune with that Moon generally is an indicator that we may not be able to trust our emotions, because whenever we get into Neptune and we get into Neptune squares, we get into what? Manipulation. Manipulation. If you have a Venus-Neptune square in your chart, and I tell you, I have clients, a lot of my clients, not a lot of them, I have a few clients, and I've had them over the years. A Venus-Neptune square is not uncommon in the charts that I've seen with people. So, what I go through when I talk to people at the Venus-Neptune squares, first of all, you must not be a welcome mat, a doormat in other people's lives, because Venus-Neptune square people, they want to help, right? They really, really want to help. They want to be kind. Yeah, oh yeah, I'll lend you $5,000. There's that obfuscation of the contract, the personal contract, and the person that they're dealing with, and Neptune coming into play. That's what happens. You'll never see that $5,000 again if you have a Venus-Neptune square. It's unfortunate, but this is how the Venus-Neptune square operates. So, and people with Venus-Neptune squares, this is the hard part. It is a very self-deceptive aspect, because what they're really trying to do at a deeper level is really be liked and accepted by somebody else under circumstances that really may not be appropriate. And then so what comes into play in many cases when we deal with Neptune is what? Shame. So then they feel bad that this person said they loved them and slept with them and they're never going to see them again. Or they feel bad that they lent somebody $5,000 and they'll never see that money again. And they have to work through the shame. So what is the Venus-Neptune square supposed to do? It's supposed to build boundaries. Boundaries. It's a challenge. But it's a challenge where you build boundaries without cutting off the feeling and the connection where, you feel that you want to go deeper on an emotional level with another person, that you can trust, that you can share, that you can dissolve with Neptune. But in order to get there, there has to be other processes, checks and balances. And anybody that's got squares to Venus and squares to Mars with Neptune, maybe even lunar squares to Neptune, substances are not your friend. You have to really, really begin to live your life in as much of a substance-free way as possible. So I'm just throwing that out there to people who do have those squares. And the substances can be anything. It could be video games, it could be porn, it could be weed, it could be alcohol, it could be to some extent power, although it's usually something that maybe it might be a Mars-Neptune square. Maybe, but Neptune drains the energy of Mars. Anyway, let's get back to this Moon-Neptune square. There's something about this Moon-Neptune square which is manipulative. It is the power of manipulation, social manipulation. It's in the 5th house. The Moon is in the 5th house at the time of the shooting, which is what? Children. Children. This is going to be the big story. The pastor's daughter. This is going to be the big story. It's going to be the children that were killed in this church, because the Moon is in the 5th house. Remember, it's in Gemini, though. Okay, it's in Gemini. There's another side to this. I'm not saying nobody died, okay, but there's another side to the story. Now, some people are saying, well, guess what? This guy was Antifa, and he did it to go start, the revolution. He did it to start the war. I don't know. I'm not sure if that actually applies to him, although people are saying this, because apparently he had some Antifa stuff on his Facebook. I couldn't find his Facebook page, but I was trying to prep for the show in other ways. So, what do we know about Mars? There's Mars in Libra. It's at the top of the chart, right up there, 8 degrees. And what's Mars doing? See a little green dotted line? See a little green dotted line? Hello, it's an inconjunct. That is an inconjunct. Oh, guess what? We have another inconjunct. It's with the Moon. It's right here. What's it inconjuncting? It's inconjuncting Jupiter. in Scorpio. What do we say about inconjuncts? They're one of the hardest aspects in the chart because there's no clear path between one planet and the other. The inconjunct must exist at a 150-degree angle and may not exceed 2, possibly 3 at the most. But I'd say 2. A 2-degree separation. Here's 3 right here with Mars, Neptune. 3 is about it. If you get out of that 3-degree orb, it is no longer an inconjunct. So that Mars is at the outlier. It's almost at 9. So yeah, that'll work. It is the broken path. The broken path. So what does it mean? Mars in conjunct Neptune. Well, Mars is what? It's violence. It's anger. It's energy. It's what? It's men. It is men. Masculine energy. In Libra, it is in its fall. Mars in Libra is in its fall. So what we have is not the best place for Mars. And Mars is almost at zenith in the chart. Not quite. It's actually Venus in Libra, which is zenith. And that's opposing Uranus. But I don't want to focus on Mars right now. Because that dotted green line, which is the inconjunct, the relationship between Mars and Neptune is unclear. We have to find it out. We have to understand it. Now Mars, in this case, is at the higher part of the chart. But Neptune, as a outer planet, trumps Mars in some ways. So it's an interesting inconjunct here. Theoretically, the dilemma. Mars is guns, right? Mars is guns. So with the opposition to Neptune, what are we trying to determine? Not the opposite, the inconjunct. We're trying to determine the effects that this Mars event is going to have on us. Now remember, there is a big gap between those two planets. And that gap can be filled in by other sources. That gap, that inconjunct, is speculation, is what it is. So when you have a lot of speculation taking place, or you have the space for speculation, that means anybody can go in there and tweak it. Anybody can go in there and assign their own value and their own meaning with that Mars-Neptune inconjunct, because there is no clear path. Get ready for this. This Mars inconjunct is going to be a hailstorm, an absolute hailstorm as it relates to guns. All right, remember, Texas is the biggest fear, the absolute biggest fear, the biggest obstacle, and the biggest barrier to essentially pulling a coup in this country. I'm telling you right now, this state that I'm living in, with all the people who live here and all the guns that are here, and there are a lot of guns here, a lot of ammo, they're going after Texas. There was a 4chan posting, I believe it was yesterday, Alice over on Facebook posted it, and basically it was another one of these 4chan postings that foreshadowed something big is going to happen in Las Vegas. They said yesterday something big is going to happen in Texas. This is a big event, boys and girls. It's a really big event. I'm telling you right now. What happened today on this Sunday in a church it's significant. And it's significant in the sense that the church, of course, is holy, it's sacred. You know, now we're into the defilements of human life. And remember, kids are going to be a big story around this with the moon in Gemini. So what's going to happen? What's going to be filled in? We can already kind of think, we can already imagine what the narrative is going to be for, say, on the left side, it's all going to be about guns. I'm telling you, this is a big one. Now, keep in mind that the Paddock event was an event that was targeted to what? Country and Western music lovers. Country Western music lovers. People that are not, they are not critical of guns or gun culture. It's part of the ethos. This is in Texas. These are Christians. And, you know, Obama said that, you know, I'm paraphrasing, but, you know, the Christians love their guns. I mean, that's especially in Texas, okay? So now we have another group that they're trying to turn and they're trying to flip, right? There's more and more energy that's being focused on the demographic that actually supports guns by going in and defiling these events so that people on that side of the spectrum, on that side of the political Mason-Dixon line, will begin to reevaluate their relationship with guns. This Neptune Mars opposition, I'm sorry, inconjunct, it's not the inconjunct, to me, there's a massive potential for programming here. Massive potential for programming. And Mars is at 8, it's almost at 9, so we're almost at that 9/11 axis as well. It's going to be very emotional. We're going to be, this following week is going to be very emotional. And guess what? Guess what? Just as the dust kind of settles with this, we're going to have another event. I can guarantee you that, right? It's just, these are happening too frequently now. We are shooting the tube at this point in time. And I'm telling you, you're going to need every single ounce of your savvy, your intellectual acumen, your spiritual development, your physical strength, and your relationship to God, okay? You're going to need it all. You're going to need it all as we go through this time, because what we're looking at is pretty significant. This Mars-Neptune inconjunct is the vast array of imagination and potentially manipulation. Let's go to the other side. There's the moon inconjunct Jupiter. What do we know about Jupiter? Jupiter's expansive, right? That's what it does. In Scorpio, it takes us into the depths. And there's the moon in Gemini, which is, the thing about the moon in Gemini is it's a moon that needs to communicate. It's a moon that needs to communicate, needs to talk. People with moon in Gemini like to talk about their feelings. That's what they do. When they talk about their feelings, they feel better. The moon in conjunct with Jupiter. It's the expansion. It is the expansion and the addition and the expansion of power and death. Remember, Scorpio is a sign that's related to death. And we were just coming out of Dia de los Muertos, right? Dios de la Muerta, the Day of the Dead. So we have this inconjunct with the moon, feeling, Gemini, polarized. It's another aspect of this moon. It's going to be a polarizing event. You're going to have people screaming at each other on national TV this week. CNN, Fox, you name it. Boy, get ready. And where's Trump? He's out of the country. Isn't that interesting? He is out of the country. You know, we had a little good run there with Trump and none of these false flags or these events, and now they're just stacking up. That says to me he's capitulated on some level. So they're going to use the expansion of Scorpio, the underworld, death, with the inconjunct with the moon. These are very powerful, very, very powerful inconjuncts. There are those dotted green lines. You see them? The moon is in trine with Mars. Boy, talk about forceful emotion. We're going to get forceful emotion out of this. Now, the Mars-Moon trine it's not always bad. It can be passionate. But it's in air signs, right? Libra and Gemini. So what are we going to be doing? We're going to be talking. Impassioned talking. Venus is opposing Uranus. More polarization happens quickly, very, very quickly. Venus conjuncting the midheaven. The midheaven's at 1 Scorpio. 1 Scorpio. What is Scorpio? It is death. It is death. Of course, it can be sex. It can be transformation. Let's look up the Sabian symbol, shall we, for 1 Scorpio. Let's do that. Hold on 1 second. Okay, here we go. Let's check in with the old Sabian symbols. Okay, so we're going to look at Scorpio 2, that midheaven. What do we got going on there? Oh, this is interesting. Yeah, I think, okay, there are two things at play here. I'm going to get into it. Okay, so this is Scorpio 2, and it's a delicate bottle of perfume lies broken, releasing its fragrance. The keynote is the accidental nature of opportunities that impel one to break away from a past, the remembrance of which is still poignant and cherished. Okay, so let's think about it. It's Texas. It's Sutherland Springs. It's 400 people. It's a Sunday. It is church. This is a slice of Americana. This is a small town frozen in time in many ways, right? Probably hasn't changed in, who knows, 50 years. Maybe less people live there now. 400 people, okay? So this is what Rudyard says: a new and greater realization usually demands a sacrifice. The sacrifice, whoa, of something which has brought loveliness and fragrance to a lesser form of living and feeling. Old feelings are poignantly remembered, even as one moves into a new and wider sphere of experience. Old relationships, or the relationship to something old, may be left behind, but the memory of their essential moments lingers on, perhaps strong and nostalgic. Boy, wait till the stories that are going to come out of the people that were in that church. Get ready, okay? Get ready. All right, here we go. This is the second stage of the 43rd sequence. It contrasts with the first in that it reveals the difficulty of dealing with the past as one enters into a new realm of feelings. To the excitement of novelty answers the memory of the graciousness of the past one has surrendered. Interesting. Surrender the past. Surrender the nostalgia of what America used to be. Yeah. Not making America great again. No, not really. That's nostalgia. And I don't think that, I think there are things that are inherent in some of the value systems that are vitally important. But what's going to be played upon is the image of this small town in Texas, this church, the 400 people. It is going to be it's going to be a time capsule. That's what Sutherland Springs is going to be portrayed as. Let's see what the moon is. The moon was at, it's actually at 4 Gemini. Let's check it out. What's going on with the Sabian symbols? 4 Gemini. Wow. Okay. Whoa. Here we go. This is 5 Gemini. Right. It's like right after. We're going to read up for the next symbol. Are you ready? This is the moon with the Sabian symbol for 5 Gemini. A revolutionary magazine asking for action. This is what Rudyard says: the explosive tendency of repressed feelings and root emotions. Every movement overstressing one direction calls forth in time an equally extreme movement in the opposite direction. This is particularly true at the level of dualistic mind, symbolized in the zodiac by Gemini. What is rigidly bound in form and convention tends to explode into formlessness. It may do so violently if socially oppressed, through revolution, or at the psychological level in psychosis, or may withdraw inwardly into the mystical states, in which one identifies with an unformulatable reality. The fifth stage, this fifth stage is related to the first, for it is the experience of a world of being so far unperceived by the everyday consciousness, which starts the process. In the same sense, a psychedelic experience may momentarily make the mind transparent to a non-ego structured realm of consciousness. It may lead to a sustained attempt at understanding what has been revealed of a transcendent reality. Whether the revolutionary action is violent or peaceful, bitterly resentful or loving, the desire is to reach beyond established forms, a revolutionary magazine asking for action. The explosive tendency of repressed feelings and root emotions. Sabian symbol for 5 Gemini. Going up from 4 with the moon, going to the next symbol up is 5 Gemini. How about that? How about that? Wow. Wow, that is explosive. That is really explosive. There's some good things happening here in the chart. We don't want to focus on all the bad. But before we check out some of the harmonic potential of the chart, look at where Pluto is at 17 degrees. It's right on the ascendant. Right on the ascendant. Pluto, take away Capricorn for a moment. What does Pluto represent? It is the ruling planet of Scorpio. So ruling planet of Scorpio. So what is Scorpio? It is death. It can be resurrection, transformation, new life, out of the ashes, the phoenix. Pluto and Capricorn on the ascendant, to me, is a marker. First of all, it is a powerful marker in terms of dealing with this intense Plutonian energy around death with this event. But in Capricorn, it is also the energy of the plutocracy, because this is what happened when Pluto went into Capricorn. It was the rise of the corporocratic state. It was the rise of the plutocracy. So here we go. The plutocracy's thumbprint is right on the ascendant for the event. It's right there. It is right there. Brought to you by the same people that drained your bank accounts and pushed your houses so far underwater that you had to swim to the surface and leave them behind. Yep, the very same people. Brought to you by the same people that decided that they needed some urban renewal with those faulty towers. Those faulty twin towers. And erect a gleaming spire towards their not only capitalistic dream for a one-world government and a one-world economy, but one of the largest telluric rods in the entire planet. Yeah, that one, the One World Trade Center, or the One World, whatever it's called. But wasn't it going to be the Freedom Tower? And Freedom, now it's the One World Freedom Enslavement Money Tower. Anyway, yeah, it's the same people. Pluto, Capricorn, right there, right on the ascendant. Squaring off against Uranus, squaring off against Mars, and Mars creeping forward, upping the intensity with every single day. You know, we've been told now that we just have to get used to this, that this is the new normal. Bullshit. This is not the new normal. It's not even close to the new normal. You know, this is something that we are going to have to keep our spirits alive and intact, and we're going to have to be on the ball. And the hardest thing with these times, the absolute hardest thing, is to fall into a sense of, number one, despair. We cannot fall into despair. This is number one. Number two, demoralization. We cannot fall into demoralization. And number three, this is the hardest part. This is really the hardest part. I think we cannot fall into a false sense of nostalgia. We can't. We can't. We have to, you know, we have to put our waders on now, put our big boots on, big boy, big girl boots on. This is the time. You know, and we have to hold down our lives, right? We have to hold down our lives, to hold down our jobs. We have to pay our bills so we can stay afloat. We got to make sure our money's in the right place. If you play with a little crypto, you got to keep that going on. You got your metals going on, whatever it is. This is a multifaceted theater for every single one of us. And we cannot afford, we absolutely cannot afford to have our guard down in a lot of ways. Can we stay open? Can we stay loving? Can we stay connected? Absolutely, we have to. But this is not a time where we can just kind of pack it in. You know, we really have to rise to the occasion. Every single one of us. And that's on an attitudinal and emotional level. You know, this is really important. And we all have lessons. You know, we all have lessons. And the biggest lesson I'm learning, I'm doing the best I can to learn this lesson, is to let go of things. You know, if something is not going your way, or somebody is not appealing to whatever it is you want them to do in that moment, to let it go as quickly as possible. And there are some relationships where we're so tested on, you know, some of the people closest to us. But so those are the ones that count the most. You know, those are the ones that you really rack up the spiritual points for. And I'm telling you, I'm working with this every single day to let go of something that is not working, not serving, whether it's an emotion, a thought, a habit, a food, whatever it is, let it go. Let it go. Lighten up, de-burden as quickly as you can. We need to be light during these times. And when you let things go, guess what? If they're meant to come back into your life, they will. That's the nature of it. I had an event the other day. Somebody said, you know, I've been trying to do this marketing piece with my my astrology course. You know, working with a third party. And at the beginning of the year, the offer was on the table, and I was not ready to do it. And it wasn't the beginning of the year, but probably about 3 months ago. Probably about 3 or 4 months ago. But I just wasn't ready to do it. And I decided that, yeah, you know, I want to market this course in a bigger way. And it would have required me to let go of some of the control around it. Not the actual content itself, but how it'd be presented. I wouldn't have a lot of control. But it would, you know, theoretically help me collateralize what I'm doing. And the fellow that helped me produce the shows, the lessons, it would help him out as well. So about a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, I reached out and said, "Hey, are these guys still interested in doing this?" And he said, "Yeah, I think so." And he went back to them and he said, "Yeah, I think we could meet on Monday." And so Monday didn't happen, and then Thursday didn't happen, and the next week didn't happen, and I wasn't really pushing it. And I said, "Okay, well, do you think these guys no longer into it?" And he said, "Yeah, I think I don't think it's happening." And you know what? I said, "Okay, great, thanks." I didn't get hung up on, "Oh, I should have done this 3 months ago, 4 months ago." I just didn't do it. It's like, okay, done. Move on. A week later, it wasn't a week later, it was like less than 4 days later, I got a call from my producer who worked on the videos with me. He said they're in. They want to meet. Okay, great. You know, I didn't agonize. I didn't agonize over, "Oh my God, I should have done this," or "I missed my timing." No, we can't do that. We don't have time for that anymore. We don't have time for it. We don't have time. You know, we've got to be fast now. Things are happening fast. They're happening quickly around us. So we have got to accelerate our own process here. And I think right now, I'm just giving you what's going on for me. and it's hard. I mean, it's really hard because sometimes we get really tested with stuff. I'm not saying it's easy at times. I'm not saying it's easy at times. But when we get tested and you have to let go of something, just let it go. Don't turn back. Just keep moving. And the results can be liberating, really, really liberating. And I think once you get used to it, you can move very, very quickly and become really deburdened. Okay, I just wanted to throw that out there for you. So there's actually some interesting things going on in this chart. Saturn's in the 12th house. And, Saturn in the 12th house is, well, we could look at it from one perspective, that these are the Saturnian forces, that this is the black hypercube tucked away in the deepest, darkest part of the chart in the 12th house, that this is actually the symbol of the oligarchy, right? It's in Sagittarius. Sagittarius, what is Sagittarius? It is what? Belief systems, religions. Is the 12th house a place where you go to church? It could be. I mean, we look at the 12th house as being what? Hospitals, sanitariums, crack houses, heroin dens, cat houses, recovery centers, maybe recording studios, movie theaters. How about churches? Would a church be a 12th house environment? I think it could qualify. The 9th house might be a church environment too, but I really think that 12th house, because it's hidden away, right? It's hidden away. Unless, of course, your church is somewhere in a forest and you're a group of naked pagans jumping around, invoking earth spirits. But here we go. There's Saturn and Sagittarius in the 12th house. What's it doing? Well, it's sextiling Venus and it's trining Uranus. Now, these would be considered positive aspects, correct? One would think so. The sextile to Venus would indicate that there is a great deal of what? It wouldn't be necessarily the emotional power, but it would be the power to draw people together. And remember, Venus is at the top of the chart here. So it's taking precedent over just about every other planet. And in that sextile with Saturn, that sextile is activation. That's what sextiles do. That's how they operate, is activation. You have to move on them. So for me, what I'm seeing out of this is that there is a very quick response, in terms of agreement with this sextile between Saturn and Venus. So if this is law, if we're making a law, which is what the 9th house is, right? The 9th house represents law. The 10th house represents the execution of law. Sagittarius makes the law, Capricorn enforces the law. So remember, this is the 9th house, the house of law. Sextile to Saturn, the guiding force of the event, tucked away in the 12th house. You're going to see some stuff happen here. I'm telling you. You're going to see some hot foot legislation, okay? And it probably will happen quickly and without a lot of, well, it will certainly happen quickly. When we have the opposition with Venus and Uranus, there would tend to be kind of a radical reaction, right? Uranus is radical and it's opposing Venus. Now, it could be revolutionary as part of the deal. That Uranus in the 3rd house is kind of revolutionary. Doesn't it feel that way? Kind of does to me. Saturn's trining Uranus. How about that? How about that? It's the forces. Saturn is in a really interesting position in this chart with that sextile with Venus and the trine to Uranus. It's kind of driving both of them, right? It is driving both of them from behind the scenes. Well, certainly it represents the potential of this Saturn being in the church, but also what comes out of it. What else do we have? We've got the Neptune trine to Jupiter and the Neptune trine to the Sun. This is going to be a very solemn affair, and yet, this is what happens with these things. You're going to get Texas strong, or you're going to get Sutherland Spring Strong, or whatever it is, right? Whatever it is, this is going to be an outpouring of emotion. Outpouring of emotion with this event. I'm telling you, this is kind of a big one. This is what I'm feeling here, and just based on sort of the dynamics of the chart. Oh boy, get ready, hang in there. This is going to be an interesting time these next few weeks. I mean, we could be in a period where the face of America, the shape of the world, changes right before our very eyes. And guess what? You get to live your life through it. You get to live your life through it. You get to continue to do what you do. You get to go to work. You get to hang out with your kids. You get to go to the gym still. All those things that you do, you just have to add another layer onto what you're experiencing and to be in this world and not of it. All right, why don't I check in with the people in the chat, the good people in the chat. Let's see how you guys are doing. Let me see if I can find you. Are we there? We should be. Where is it? Okay. Moon and Gemini. Hey, hey, hey. All right, that is the card at the bottom of the pyramid. It's been pulled. All right, who do we have here? We got 53 people. Let me just do a little shout out here. See, hello, Suze. Hi, Judy. Hello, Sally. Sally, I was thinking about you. So where's Sally been? Okay, there's Joray. Hi, Joray. Vixen G. Daniel. Hey, Daniel. The shooter and wife were members of that church. The shooter and wife, they taught Sunday school. I'm in Texas. I'm going down there to find the truth as the MSM lies. Good job, Joray. Let's show them what Texans. Hi, Christine. Dwayne Ullman. Is it a hoax? I don't know if it's a hoax. I don't think it's a hoax, but something that does not smell right. Maybe the share market due for correction. Could be keep the guns. Criminals will always get them. That's from Plutonian 008. Having Lunar return here and Jupiter return, when you should have some money coming into your bank account. I think that Trump is on track with the positive agenda. Have faith. We don't know all this going to be in the background. Jan, I'd like to hope so. I would like to hope so. Trump is how should we say this? He's interesting. He's confounding in a lot of ways. All we know for sure is that this year everything is revealed. Have you not been paying attention, in particular pedophilia? Oh, absolutely. Of course, absolutely. Let's see what else. A crypto chart might be interesting. There's Nancy. Hi, Nancy. Hello, Ivan. Nice to see you. Hi, Madeline. And Sally's been Bitcoining. Good for you, Sally. Right on. Mustang Sally. All right. So what I'm going to do now, just want to say hi to everybody. What I want to do now is I want to bring on some of the charts that people have. Oh, you know what I want to do before I do that? I'm going to keep you in suspense. There's Alexandra. Hi, Alexandra. Nice to see you. There's Jack. What's happening, Jack? Was expecting big things with his sign. Oh, he's getting out. Yeah, if Jan Winter is getting out, something's going on. This event will take away from the Clinton investigation. Bingo, but you know they planned this in advance. These things just don't happen at the spur of the moment. So, but you're right, Plutonian. You're absolutely right. Okay, so what I want to do before I get into the charts, the three charts that I brought up, I want to bring up one more chart here. So let me get rid of this one. Well, maybe I'll just keep this one up here. You don't really want to see me, do you? Okay. All right, so let's do this. One more. Add image. Okay, well, it's a little bit different. All right, here we go. So, I wanted to get the aspect ratio a little bit better. This is the chart. Let me just bring this out here, and we'll come back to the other one. This is the chart for November 15th. And I just wanted to give you an example here. the trine to, I'm sorry, the square to Mars is much tighter. Can you see that? So this is for 12 p.m. in New York. So we're talking high noon. Of course, we can see the sun at high noon at the top of the chart. So we have Moon, which is really in almost exact opposition with Uranus here. Mars squaring off against Pluto, and Mars starting to get closer in orb. It's not quite there yet. It is not quite there with Uranus, and we have that Sun in conjunct with Uranus. So this is on the 15th of November. Let me see if I can get one more chart up here for you guys so you can get a look at this. Let's do this. Let's do the chart for the 22nd, which is Kennedy's assassination. Let me bring this up here. Here we go. Because this will really give you a very clear example about what I'm talking about with this T-square. Okay. Yeah, here we go. Okay, so you can see here Mars isn't quite yet in square with Uranus. But here in this chart, we have a very tight, very tight T-square. Mars is within hailing distance. This is a 6-degree opposition. So this is really that day I was talking about. You know, it's sort of moving past Pluto, but it's still in tight aspect with a 19 to 17 degree orb. And Mars is actually gaining a bit of prominence, sort of overcoming Pluto a little bit here. And then we have the opposition to Uranus. Now this is just an arbitrary time. You know, this is high noon in New York on 11/22. We have Aquarius rising. And what you see here in this day, which is really fascinating, is that there aren't a lot of other dissonant aspects going on. Like, we're not looking at an opposition between, you know, the Sun and Saturn, or we're not looking at, you know, 2 or 3 other squares. We're not looking at like super intense conjunctions, unless you want to call this Moon-Pluto conjunction intense, which it could be. Saturn-Mercury is kind of intense, so we do have some intensity with those conjunctions. But what do we have? What do we really have here? We've got this really tight T-square. So when there's nothing else in the chart that is making it more complex or bringing other levels of challenge and dissonance in the chart, because we can get distracted, we can be all over the place, and you know, there could be some, you know, fire we have to put out here, something we have to address over here, something that we have to deal with over in this direction. And so it doesn't get the force of kind of one intensely chiseled out aspect. Not like this. You see that? This T-square is almost razor sharp because there's nothing else that is taking away from the intensity of this challenging trinity of cardinal planets, which are all about initiating, right? They're all about initiation. So if I were to take a date, I would say that this 11/22, which is also 0 Sag right there, right? 0 Sag. But this 11/22 date is pretty significant. Saturn is right there, 26 degrees. It's conjunct the galactic center. So are we moving towards an apotheosis on Kennedy's, the the anniversary of Kennedy's death. Let me just throw this out there to you as a potential scenario. What if we're in this period of escalation with the idea and the intent that, number one, people would have to surrender their guns, give up their guns, tweaking a certain portion of the populace, right, so that they can sort of surrender their beliefs around guns and gun culture. And then of course there's more fear and all the psychic vampires that feed off all these things, right? What if all these things are happening and it's being amplified and there's more dark momentum accruing? What if, and I'm just throwing this out there as a form of speculation, but what if something was going to happen around Kennedy? And of course, all the papers are out there. Everything's been released. There's some interesting stuff. The files are out there. But what if something comes out around this that all of a sudden just blows everything out of the water, right? It could be very interesting. I'm just throwing it out there because the Saturn-Mercury conjunction in Gemini is what? It's about truth. It's about truth. And it's in trine with Uranus. And guess what? It happens fast. It happens fast. It's like all of a sudden it's upon us. And I believe this is something of a revelatory nature. Meanwhile, this T-square is incredibly disruptive. Incredibly disruptive. Circle 1122 in your calendar. This is going to be a very interesting day on a lot of different levels. All right. Why don't we... let me bring in a few more charts now. These are some of the charts that I said I'd check out for some people. So the first one I'm going to do is Marie, I believe. Let's just check it out. Where is she? So I'll probably spend about 10 minutes per chart. So there we go. So this is Marie's chart. Let me get rid of this one here. Hold on a second. Yep. Let me get rid of image 2. Yep. And rid of that. Yep. Okay. So here's Marie's chart. That's a lovely chart, isn't it? I mean, check it out. The geometry of it is really, really stunning in a lot of ways. What do we have? We've got a grand trine here. Hello, look at that. We've got a grand trine here. We have a kite pattern. That's the overall theme of the chart, is the kite pattern, with Jupiter being the focal point of the kite pattern. We have all kinds of interesting trines between Uranus and Venus, late Venus and Pisces, Sun, Mercury right on the midheaven in Aries. Marie, I hope you use your mind for a living and communicate. There's a brilliance in this chart. Uranus on the ascendant can be a little bit erratic, although it is always lively, and Uranus on the ascendant will bring you very interesting synchronicities. There's always something snap, crackle, and popping with Uranus on the ascendant. And in Leo, Marie is somebody who is unique and is a total individual, Uranus and Leo on the ascendant. People with this aspect want to be free. They want to be free and creative and have creative reign over their own life. This is very, very important. Now, Uranus, when it's on the ascendant, can also bring highly unusual circumstances to a person's life. And there will be pivot moments with Uranus on the ascendant, meaning that the individual will have something that they'll experience which will be strange or unusual, sometimes dark. It can be dark. People with Aquarius rising also have a very similar aspect in their charts, but generally it's there to create new opportunities and to break up static and stagnant forms. Now the challenge is with Uranus on the ascendant, if you're really into chaos and synchronicity and creativity, you can get addicted to it. And all of a sudden, you begin to live your life more from a Uranian perspective and less from a Saturnian perspective. Although it doesn't look like necessarily that Marie would have that trouble, because look where Saturn is. It's in a difficult place in the fifth house. I think Saturn fifth house is one of the more challenging places for Saturn, because it can, there's difficulty with children, or the childhood can be very, very structured and very disciplined and very ordered and not a lot of fun in a lot of ways. But the thing with Saturn, sometimes having children can be very difficult with Saturn in the fifth house, or there may be no children, or sometimes children come later in life with Saturn in the fifth. That's what Saturn does. It limits. But ultimately, when you have Saturn in the fifth, you've got to find something that you love, and you have to be serious about it. Love is a serious thing with Saturn in the fifth house. So now we have the trine coming from Saturn, which is at 4 degrees. Was it? I'm sorry, I don't have my glove. It's hard for me to see. Let me get Marie's chart. I want to get this right. Hold on a second. Saturn's at 14. Okay, so she's got Saturn at 14. So the closest trine is with Mercury. So this is a really interesting chart, because she has this really creative potential, an unusual mind with Uranus trining Mercury, and this is all about higher consciousness with the ninth house. So, she's really into having a unique set of beliefs in a lot of ways, and pioneering those beliefs and telling people about those beliefs. I think Marie could be a bit of a, how do I say this? I wouldn't say she would be a zealot, but there is a sense of being very excited about ideas, and there is a sense of perhaps, I wouldn't call it proselytizing, but not even preaching, but there's an energy here that's so excited about whatever breakthrough she is experiencing in life, whatever breakthrough that is. She wants to share it, right? Get it out, get it into the world. This is also a really good house for publishing. Not always great for writing, although with the Saturn trine to Mercury, it also brings in a sense of discipline with the mind, which is always good. The Sun is at a really wide orb here at 4 to 14. Some people wouldn't even call this a real trine, but Astrodeans plays with those 10-degree orbs. And look what we got going on down here. We have ourselves a little yod. Ooh, hey, Marie's an interesting person. She's certainly got a lot of facets to her. She's got a yod, and she has this Pluto-Neptune sextile, and it's all going into her personality, right? All funneling up here, all these inconjuncts. And what do we know about yods? When planets hit a point on the yod, whether it's Pluto here or Neptune, or in this case it would probably be the Sun. Yeah, the Sun. Yeah, it would be the Sun. Okay, so this is interesting, because there's the inconjunct between Pluto and Venus, and then there's the inconjunct between Neptune and Venus, and Neptune and the Sun. You see, this is a chart where it almost is, it's almost an embarrassment that I'm only going to do this for about 10 minutes or 15 minutes, because this chart is so complex. There's so much going on. Like, we could spend easily a half an hour just looking at this yod and breaking this yod down, and how Pluto and Neptune, these transpersonal forces, these are the archetypal expressions of the outer gods of the chart. These are where destiny and fate swing on a pivot, right? And they're impacting both the personality and the relationships that are connected with this personality. And look at where Venus is. It's at that 29th degree, which is the conjunction with, guess what, Harvey Weinstein's son. Maybe Marie could help Harvey save his soul with that Venus conjunction with his son. That'd be interesting. Harvey, meet Marie. She's here to redeem you That's what she's here to know. This is not the case. But it's interesting, these inconjuncts. Wow, very, very powerful. I would say that with the inconjunct both with Pluto and Neptune to Venus, that there would be like a really unusual circumstance of losing somebody in one's life, like not knowing why a person has moved on. Maybe it would be through a death or some kind of relationship, but it would almost be like a mystery that would have to be explored over the course of a lifetime. Why did this person leave? What did I do wrong, or was it their time to go? This is a very powerful inconjunct and could really trigger and catapult Marie into a profound relationship, with the Godhead at 29 degrees Pisces, through this kind of ineffable, peace around relating and the loss of relating, and maybe even potentially connecting with somebody in a very unique way, the other side perhaps. But this would be kind of almost a life work through this inconjunct, and the inconjunct with the Sun. This is with Neptune. This is really an enigma for a chart that is so deeply influenced by Aries, with Aries on the midheaven and Mercury on the midheaven, and then the Sun in Aries. But the inconjunct with Neptune at times would give this individual, i.e. Marie, a sense that she's not here, or her relationship with this world at best would be tenuous, because there's Neptune in the 4th house, which is not the best place for Neptune, especially growing up. There can be alcoholism, severe dependency, wanting to save one or both of the parents with Neptune in the 4th. Sometimes people with Neptune in the 4th can be adopted. It can be an adoptive situation. So this is about who she is, where she came from in some ways, right? And trying to understand that. Anyway, it's a really interesting chart, and there's so much complexity in it. We've got the grand trine with Mars, and guess what? It's an out-of-sign trine, because that Jupiter is where? It's in Virgo at 25 degrees. It's a wide trine, but it's there. And then there's the moon in Aquarius, much closer, 1 degree orb with Mars. It's that Jupiter that kind of grounds her a little bit. There's no Earth here except for that Jupiter. This is a really fascinating chart. There's so much energy in this chart, and there's so much creativity, and there's a brilliant mind, and a mind that will come on more over time. You see, that's how Saturn works. When Saturn is in trine with Mercury, the mind gets stronger. Even Saturn squares to Mercury, the mind gets stronger over the course of a lifetime. But it's that Jupiter, it's the only Earth component that's kind of holding her, into terra firma. And Jupiter is what? It's in the 3rd house in Virgo. So what is that? That's mental health. That's mental health, Jupiter in Virgo, even though it's in its fall. Marina says she's got a yacht from my moon to the sun. I'm like, whoa, that's interesting, Marina. That's really interesting. Let's see. Jan's chiming in with some stuff on the Kennedy assassination. How about also comparing the charts of Weinstein and Spacey? Ooh, that's good, CG Saddle. Why don't you do that? CG was one of my, she's one of my best students. Why don't you do that? Why don't you compare the charts? You're sharp. Although with Weinstein it's hard because we don't know what time he was born. I'll tell you a story about CG. She'll blush a little bit probably. Anyway, when I teach astrology like one-on-one with people, which I haven't done in a while, and nobody's like studied with me for a while, but what I'll do is I'll give people charts. I give them charts, and I wouldn't tell them who the chart was. I wouldn't tell them who the chart was. And one time, I gave her a chart, and within about 2 minutes, she figured out it was Mike Tyson. I was blown away, absolutely blown away. So if you wanted to take that on, CG, you should do that, because I'd actually put that on my website. If you wanted to write it up, I'd help you about that. Anyway, Marie, what a fascinating chart. Absolutely fascinating. The mystery of Marie's chart the enigma of Maria's chart, where she came from. And even with all that powerful, intense Aries creative energy in her chart, with that equally powerful trine to Saturn, which gives the mind some gravitas, there is still this piece. Do I really exist? Do I live here? Where do I come from? Is this my home? What happened in her home is really this trajectory. What happened to her growing up is the trajectory, the relationship with that experience is the thing that she would have worked on for a large part of her life. Chiron in the 7th house is great for being a therapist, by the way. It's a very powerful therapeutic aspect. All right, let's do another chart. Okay, who do we have next? Oh, this is somebody that's actually in the chat room. Woo, woo, woo. Here we go. How about that? All right. All right. This is our friend in the chat room, Plutonian 008. How about this? We got some real time going on here. Pop it up. Okay, so again, I'm using the Astrodian settings. So we have Aquarius rising, and we have, what else here? Sun-Pluto conjunction in Virgo. Mercury in Virgo, Mars in Virgo. So we got a lot of Virgo happening, a ton of Virgo. And looks like I share a Sun-Sun conjunction with our friend. And what else do we have? That's very interesting. All this Virgo energy. You know, this is the energy of the healer. But this is very, very intense, this Sun-Pluto conjunction. The chart itself, what do we have? It is, in terms of the Jones types, if there were one more planet here in Leo, well, we'd need two more. We'd have a locomotive, but we don't. No, we don't. All right, let's get into this. Okay. So let me break this down. So one of the things that I do when I look at a chart is I pop it, right, and I want to get that first hit on the chart, like just when you first meet somebody, what's the first impression? What's the first impression? So the first thing that grabbed me, okay, Aquarius rising. The second thing that grabbed me, true node in the first house, and then that massive stellium over in the 7th house in Virgo, which would take some entangling. And then I look at Neptune on the midheaven. And Neptune on the midheaven, to me, is one of the most interesting, beguiling, and difficult aspects to deal with inside of a chart. I've actually written about it. And the whole kind of process with Neptune on the midheaven, and it's different than let's say, if Neptune was at, say, 3 or 4 degrees Sagittarius, it'd be in the 10th house. And it would be different because you'd have Neptune in the 10th, which is more along the lines of kind of confusion, maybe some disorder, a vague sense of purpose and something happening or wanting to happen at a higher level, or feeling as if the person has this destiny to fulfill, but they're not quite sure what it is. So maybe they get into some kind of work that is philanthropic, or they get into some kind of work that is creative, but it doesn't always, there's this kind of vague artisticness about it. However, it can be a worthwhile aspect, but the person must have faith. Whatever it is that they do, they have to have faith in what they do. And the whole idea with Neptune up here is to kind of go with the flow and not get too dissuaded. Faith is really important when it comes to things like creativity, art, especially artists, mystics. Anyway, when I looked at Neptune from a the perspective of people that have Neptune on the midheaven or Pisces on the midheaven. Many of them were, surprisingly or not, directors, composers, painters. So it's a very creative aspect. Coming from the 9th house instead of the 10th house, it has more to do with sort of a mystical belief in life. Like, especially in this really tight sextile with the Sun and Pluto, it would be like, believe it and it can be. So our friend Pluto, one of the things that they're here to do is to understand the nature and the power of faith and belief. And even in healing, like this would be an incredible kind of aspect for somebody that's really involved in healing in some ways. It could be faith healing, hands-on healing. Maybe Virgo gets in nutrition, but it's not really that. It's much more spiritual. It's much more effusive. It's much more, I wouldn't say effusive. It's much more spiritual, and it has a lot to do with nuance and this idea that anything can be accomplished if one has faith. This is it. This is the lesson inside this chart, because it's a sextile, right? And what are sextiles? What are they supposed to do? They are supposed to be triggers for something that we are working on, practicing, integrating in this lifetime. So it's not like a trine where, hey, it's already baked in, right? The sextile gives us opportunities. So the sextile between Neptune and the Sun is an active cycle over the course of a lifetime where faith can get stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger. But it's not overwhelming and it's not overbearing. And you know what else I like here? I like the fact that Neptune softens the Virgo Sun. It gives the Virgo Sun a sense of, emotion. With all that Virgo, it's can be, it can be very, really super critical, right? Super, super critical. The one thing I see about the chart that could use maybe a little bit more of is some fire. There's not a lot of fire here. But I want to get back to this whole Neptune-Sun thing and the sextile between the two. And even the sextile between Pluto, which is generational. Although in this case, it's more than generational. In this case, it's actually very, very personal. And it's very unique. This is a very unique chart. And it can just be this one aspect here, this Neptune sextile with the Sun and Pluto conjunction. But, so what do we have? We've got this kind of Piscean sort of effect, right? Because when we get, Neptune is the ruler of Pisces. So we're blending sort of Virgo and Pisces and Scorpio, which is very magnetic as well. And the idea here is for the Neptune, solar Neptune energies to commingle in a really creative and kind of almost magical sort of way. Now, where else do we see the importance of this? It's in the first house, where the true node in what? Pisces. So with Aquarius, remember, Uranus on the ascendant, Aquarius rising. It's a very unusual rising sign. And in many instances, Aquarians and Uranus ascending people, their lives can pivot on these Uranian moments where things happen. By and large, people with Aquarius rising have to follow the beat of their own drummer. Now, this is not always that easy at times for a person who has this much Virgo in their chart. Although the Virgo is nicely aspected, it is also, Virgo tends to be a much more conservative sign. So here we have some really interesting kinds of synthesis going on, because Aquarius on the ascendant is all about developing the individual consciousness in a unique way with respect and regard to the collective, because Aquarius is a sign that's paradoxical. It wants to be unique, but it also wants to join. It wants to be a part of something bigger than itself. It's the nature of Aquarius. And Virgo really isn't wired that way. So here we have novelty, we have complexity, which is fascinating. And then we have the true node in the first house. And the first house isn't just Aquarius. There's Pisces going on there as well. So there's an intellectual kind of plank that's extended to the world, right? Because Aquarius is intellectual. It may be eccentric, it may be colorful, it may be unique, it may be radical, it may be revolutionary. Sometimes Aquarius rising can be accident prone. This is true. But just below it, here comes the water. Here comes Pisces. So Pluto needs to at times move off of the kind of intellectual, unique, at times perspective to get out of the head, and into the emotional body, right? Now this is a person, Pluto, who's really he needs to focus on the development of the individual with the true node in the first house. But in Pisces, again, it's kind of transcendent. So how does this person kind of develop that, right? Well, it's through creativity, because Pisces is a creative sign. Pisces is not about, which is interesting, right? Because the South Node is on the other side in Virgo. And what do we know about the South Node? Well, South Node, we kind of want to leave it alone. We want to go to the North Node, and we want to feed the North Node, which is Pisces, which is creativity, which is inspiration, which is a mutual reception in some ways of the Neptune-Sun trine, right? So we have this kind of Piscean synthesis going on. And here's the complexity, another layer of it. This is interesting. This chart does not look like it's all that complex, right? But it is, trust me. Here's the other part of it. That South Node in Virgo, look what's above it. Mars, Mercury, Pluto, Sun, all in Virgo. All in Virgo. So she's got to figure out, or Pluto's got to figure out, how to integrate this Piscean sense of, I'm going to go with the flow, I'm going to let go, I'm going to be unique, I'm going to find my Aquarian vibe in this world, and then honor this Virgo stuff, all these Virgo planets in the 7th house, and at the same time be kind of aware of that South Node in Virgo, which I'm really not supposed to deal with. It's not. So there is really healing kind of capacity with this chart. But I would say more than anything that this would not be hands-on healing. That this would be much more along the lines of psychic healing or spiritual healing or artistic healing or creative healing. This is my basic assessment. So the whole idea of faith is, I think, really, really essential in this chart. It's totally essential in this chart. And there's a lot more to it, right? There's the moon square to the sun. That's an interesting square. That's having to deal with. It's not just any moon sun square, but it's moon in Gemini and it's sun in Virgo, which can be, this is where the emotions can be overanalyzed at times with the moon sun square in Virgo Gemini. There can be a bit much, and there also can be kind of this at times erratic expression of emotion with the moon sun square, and sometimes it can relate to home, right? Because there's that moon in the 4th house, and maybe there's a sense of unsettledness. Home, by the way, needs to be a place where people can talk freely, share their stories. But there's some intensity with this as well. The moon square to Mercury, which is an unusual square. I don't see a lot of moon Mercury squares. Is that Mercury? No, it's Pluto. I'm sorry. It's Pluto. Mercury's kind of wide. Yeah, Mercury's wide. It's a 10-degree orb, but it's still kind of in there. I focus more on that moon Pluto square. And moon Pluto square people, man, that's intensity. I'm telling you right now, especially for women. Moon Pluto square women they have dwelled in the underworld. This is Persephone energy, and there's at least one, maybe two relationships that go along with a Moon Pluto square that are almost like relationships from hell. Generally speaking, that's the nature of it, because you've got to go through that. You've got to go through that phase. You've got to go through that intensity. You've got to go through that obsession, and through that, what do? You get to be reborn. You have to be reborn on an emotional level with the Moon Pluto square. And it can be really powerful in terms of psychic integration and never having to go through that again. Very interesting chart. There's a lot more that I could say about it, but it's getting late. So let's do one more really quickly here. And this is Michael. We're going to bring Michael's chart on here. Here we go. All right, here we go. Last one of the night. There it is. There's Michael's chart. Let's bring him up here. Okay, so Michael, hey, we got another Virgo. How about that? Sun, Mars conjunction. And then we have Mercury there also. Triple conjunction. And they're also T-square off with Mercury, Mars, and Jupiter, T-squaring with Saturn, and the Saturn-Jupiter opposition. This is interesting, very interesting. We have Pluto, Capricorn rising, and another true node first house person. So the development of the self is really, really important here. Scorpio on the midheaven, and what else? Saturn in, there's another Saturn in the 5th house. Interesting. So some of the things that I've said, already we could apply some of that to Michael's chart, but Michael is unique, so we have to go in here with a sense of uniqueness. People that have Capricorn rising, it's an interesting rising sign. People with Capricorn rising, they are old when they are young. If you've ever seen that movie, the story about Benjamin Button, that movie's about Capricorn. And Capricorn rising, Capricorn sun, part of their challenge in this lifetime is to be able to adapt with feeling old when they're young. And then over time, the aging cycle begins to reverse itself. And from a personality perspective, Capricorn rising people tend to get much lighter as they get older. Same with Capricorn sun, and with the true node here in the 1st house, it accentuates that, right? Totally accentuates it. Sometimes people that have Capricorn rising may have a slight deformity, and I've seen this, and there's no real. The only thing with this is the square to Uranus. I'll get into that in a second, but oftentimes with people of Capricorn rising, there's something unusual about their appearance, right? Because a Capricorn rules the entire skeletal structure. So sometimes people with Capricorn rising could have like really, really big shoulders or pronounced shoulders, or there's something about not their torso, but their frame that is different. I've seen people with Capricorn rising with one leg longer than the other. So what happens over time? Again, it's one of those things where things get worked out. From the perspective of the form. This chart is another chart where there tends to be, okay, well, look, yeah, we got a T-square, we've got sextile, trine. So there's really, not too much going on. Wrong. There are things going on in this chart, and this mystery of the 8th house. If I were to title this chart, it's the mystery of the 8th house, and because almost half the planets are in that one house. Pluto's there; it's in its own house. It's kind of an intense place. Sun, Mars, Mercury, and the 8th house it's very difficult to have that many planets in the 8th house, because there's a lot of working behind the scenes with that stellium in the 8th house. It's behind the scenes. It's dealing with other people's money. It's dealing with at times it can be a sense of powerlessness, because it's very difficult to be seen with all those planets in the 8th house. There's a great desire to help here. I mean, this chart and also Plutonian's chart, they're pretty close together. Let me just see here. Hold on. I want to bring that back up here. Pluto's chart. 1970. It's interesting. I mean, the same kind of, we've got Sun, Pluto, Mercury, Mars, Pluto, Sun, Mercury, Mars, and 3 years apart. These people should get to know each other, don't you think? With all this Virgo, maybe I could start a astrological dating service. Anyway, the challenge with this chart is the mystery of the 8th house. How does Michael manifest who he is? How does the world see Michael? It's difficult. It's very difficult, and we look for areas in which there can be some, what I'd call through line in some ways. And for his sun, which is his identity, it's quite, again, there's a semi-sextile to Venus, perhaps through relationship. There's parts of Michael that can come out with that Venus and Leo, and, where Venus is in its own ruler, right? That house, the seventh house. And there can be a sense of connecting with somebody at a heart level. That's one area where he can really come out and be seen a bit more. It's through relationship. And relationship is actually pretty good here. I like Venus and Leo. It's warm, it's effusive, it is generous. And in the seventh house, there's a sense that there is a desire to connect with another person, whether it's one-on-one in marriage or committed relationship or business. It's that one-on-one area where this is a full-hearted connection, right? This is not like Venus and Virgo, where you have one kind of foot in the water, you have a toe in the water and you don't. Well, I think I'll go in there and I'll try that. I'll try that a little bit because, I'm not sure if the water is too cold. Venus and Leo doesn't do that. Venus and Leo throws down and says, I'm in. I want to experience this. So the sextile to the sun and the sextile of Pluto, but really the semi-sextile to the sun is that's where Michael can get out of that eighth house. There's a lot of stuff here with legacy in the eighth house. Legacy from the perspective of money, i.e. will, estate, particularly Pluto there, but also the legacy of the family, the legacy to some extent of the father, which is not an easy legacy, by the way, because of a Sun-Saturn square. And Sun-Saturn squares are really indicative of difficult relationships, where they can be difficult relationships with the father. And look where Saturn is in the fifth house. Saturn is, again, you have Saturn in the fifth house growing up. It is not an easy childhood. It is not an easy childhood. You have to grow up quickly with Saturn in the fifth house. But again, if you find something that you love with Saturn, you can work on it. And you can become quite good at it. That's the upside with Saturn. So this is a chart. Michael's got a chart where, guess what? Guess what he's here to learn? He's here to learn discipline. Discipline. And sometimes the lessons around it can be difficult. And maybe it was a demanding father with that Sun-Saturn square. Anyway, Uranus is in the ninth house, which I like, because Uranus in the ninth house is all about creating your own belief systems and getting out there and finding out what's happening, in the world, in the higher consciousness and truth. Uranus is kind of the radical and the rebel seeking out new spiritual understanding in your own way. It's like, don't tell me what to believe. I'm going to figure it out on my own. I'm not going to go to church. I'll reject the church. I'll create my own church with Uranus in the ninth house. And there's a trine to Saturn, which is indicative of somebody who could have an insight and have it be grounded, right? Bring it down, bring it all the way down to the fifth house, which is the first planet, the real first planet we encounter in this chart, right? It's not the true node, it's not Chiron, it's Saturn. We don't encounter the first planet in the chart to Saturn in the fifth. It's really interesting. So, obviously there's a lesson with self here, right? There's a lesson with self. The true node, Capricorn, this is somebody who has to raise themselves almost. They have to take possession of themselves. And I think this is growing up really quickly with true node and Capricorn in the first house, and especially that Sun-Saturn square. There's a kindness with Moon Neptune. He's got that moon at 29 degrees Scorpio, which is pretty intense. It's in the 10th house, but there's a kindness here. And there's some psychic awareness with this Moon-Neptune conjunction, especially with the sextile to Pluto. Now, in the last chart we saw that Pluto-Moon square, which is the intensity, having to go through the intensity and almost at times the hell-like conditions of emotion as it relates to attachment, deep attachment. This is different. The sextile between Moon and Neptune here, Moon-Pluto, is much more powerful, much more magnetic. There's a feeling with this that under the right conditions and the right circumstances, with the right mindset, that there is some mesmerism and some magnetism in this chart that Michael could draw resources to him solely based on the kind of the aligning with a feeling of what would be the feeling? Be desire, right? It'd be it's desire. Scorpio's desire. So desire would play a role in this chart, pretty significant role, and that's another way. It's almost like, maybe people come to Michael into the 8th house, right? Maybe that's where it's at. Not him going up, him drawing people into that 8th house realm, which is a pretty intense realm, that 8th house. There's no middle ground there. Over the course of a lifetime, an individual will go through a lot of transformation if they've got all these planets, and some of that might have to do with health actually as well, with Virgo, all the alignment of Virgo, all in the 8th house. Jupiter is the gift of the spirit in the 12th house, and here at 29 Sagittarius. Again, it's one of those planets, one of those faith aspects. It's like the final degree of Sagittarius, and it's hidden beneath everything. So, one of the things that I would say is, find your deep spiritual connection, with Jupiter in the 12th, and somehow, which is rough, right? It's kind of rough with the square to Pluto, and to some extent the square to the Sun, and even the opposition to Saturn. But the whole idea is gratitude at a deep inner level. This is I think a very difficult lesson, because I think there are times here with this chart with Virgo, right? I wouldn't say that Virgo has a persecution complex, but Virgo has so much intellectual capacity, and it's so sharp. It's so sharp that it may dismiss in some ways this hokey notion of spirituality, deep faith, God, and there'll be times over the lifetime where this almost intellectual and maybe quasi-scientific sort of energy or locus would have to go through some kind of state change around faith, because this Jupiter in Sagittarius would be a prime example of get out of your 8th house, come to the 12th house, and feel the expansive nature of meditation, or feel the expansive nature of whatever it is that takes you out of your head with all that Virgo, and drop into a deeper place with that Jupiter in Sagittarius. And even Saturn opposing Jupiter in Gemini, again, it's like, Saturn in Gemini is it's interesting. I mean, it's like people of Saturn in Gemini can at times be cynical. It can be a bit of a cynical kind of, it's like picking things. If Gemini is into particulate, then Saturn in Gemini is into like maximum particulate. And maybe cynical is not the right word, but when it gets into Saturn really pressing down on Gemini, and creating, all these sort of fractals of not necessarily reality, but fractals of thoughts, fractals of attention, that it could take away from the potentially really expansive nature of Jupiter in Sagittarius, which is not that at all. It's like, it's very expansive. It's very different than Saturn in Gemini. And then, of course, we have Chiron over here in the 3rd house, which is an interesting place for Chiron. That's about, mental health, mental healing. Heal thyself in the mind, especially in Aries with Chiron in the 3rd. All right, so there we go. That's our 3rd chart of the night. So I've got about, 8 or 9 more charts. I'll probably do 2 next week. I was over ambitious this week. You guys are probably tired of listening to me. So I'll do 2 more next week, and we'll string this out. And then once we cycle through this batch, maybe I'll take a break for a while, and we'll do some more, okay? So thank you, Marie, Michael, and Pluto for sending your birth data in. Appreciate that. Yes, we're going to remove that, and we're going to remove that. Yes, and we're going to remove that. Yes, okay. Here I am. How about that? All right, let me check in with the chat room here. What do we got? Let's see. We got 40 people. Where'd the chat room go? I can't see it anymore. Hello. Oh, there it is. All right. So let me see what we got left here. Yes. Interesting. Okay. All right. All right. Look at CG Saddle working her magic in there. Okay. Here we go. Yes, I'm very mystical. Yes. Yes, it is difficult. Very Virgo and Scorpio. Okay. All right. We got John Alexander. Okay. Oh, Jan. Oh, Jan, you can send me some info. Jan, send me an email. Send me an email. Send me your stuff. We'll get you in the next round. RPM 1122 at zoho.com. Okay. Marina, my mom is Pluto, Sun conjunct Leo. It was difficult. She suffered a stroke. My ascendant is 28. Marina, what happened with you on the eclipse? With your ascendant at 28 Leo. Okay, what else do we have here? I've done this like before. My husband, good. Never lived in one place for more than 4 years. Yes. Okay, I always go through death of some sort. Changes. Thanks, Robert. Hit everything. Nice job. There's Susan. Hi, Susan. All right. Susan in Hawaii. All right. Hey. Okay. Cool. All right. I think we're done. Right? I think we're done for the night. Thanks for hanging out. This has been the live stream with me, Robert Phoenix. And I'll be back tomorrow morning, bright and early. I'm sure with a lot more to share. And have a great night or morning, week. Hey, we're in this together. All right, just remember that. We are in this together. You know what I say. Use your head to discern what's real. Your heart to stay open to what's possible. This has been the live stream. I'm Robert Phoenix. You can find me at robertphoenix.com. If you like this, hey, tell your friends about it. They may enjoy it too. Okay. Ciao, ciao.